Good evening. Tonight is Wednesday, April 15th. Happy Tax Day. It's a meeting of the Land Use Committee. I'll ask everybody to introduce themselves. I'm Jay Rose Pepe, City Council member.
Scott Diener, City Council member.
Nick Bond, Community Development Director.
Jim Fisk, Principal Planner.
The mayor will not be with us today, and we have a published agenda. Is there anything that anybody would like to add to the agenda at this time? Okay. The first item we had is window display standards for adult retail uses. Just a quick update that Charlie had sent us a couple examples from cities, and my understanding is this is going to come up at the retreat this Friday for general discussion. So at this point in time, I would say that we move forward to the next item and bring this back at our next month's meeting with a little bit more examples and see if there's any draft language that we want to bring before council. Is
So
that right?
this is the adult uses topic.
Yeah, window display standards for adult retail uses.
So part of the reason we put this back on there is I thought that the Land Use Committee was going to report out to the full council in the committee report and see if there's interest in having a bigger discussion at the whole council.
I
And that
think that will come up on Friday then.
at the retreat? Okay, gotcha.
Yes,
So
that's
this
what I'm
this
saying
is
is we'll keep it as an item for next month and then see what the council's uh, desire is on Friday.
Okay, sounds good.
Street.
so this
Go
is
ahead,
somebody's
Scott.
priority, obviously. One of their priorities for the retreat then?
I don't know.
Okay.
I haven't seen a list of the retreat items. I know you shared yours. I shared mine. I haven't seen anything else for a published agenda yet, unless you have, Scott.
I have not.
Okay.
So I hate to pull on the thread a little bit, but your thought, Jay, is that it might come up and we should just wait in case it does.
Yes, I mean, I have, we had a couple examples. I was
Yeah.
searching the web for other examples,
Yeah.
and quite frankly, there's not a lot out there.
Okay. I'm okay with that if staff's okay with it.
Fine with me.
All right. B, on-street parking, chain parking, and parking time limitations.
So we have been working through with the vendor that we're talking to about a license plate reader system for parking enforcement vehicle to um, to bring a contract forward to the city council. And as part of this, we've realized that our chain parking restrictions in the city are not something that can be enforced by an LPR system in the way in their current form. And so we're seeking input from the city council on how to proceed here. And the license plate reader system basically allows our parking enforcement officers to drive around the city and it will alert them to when somebody has violated a parking time restriction. In our downtown, the code says that somebody has to move their car 2 blocks away to not get tagged with a parking violation under the chain parking rules. And so if you're parked at the corner of Frederick and Sydney, you'd either have to move all the way up to Kitsap or east of Harrison in order to not violate the time restrictions because you fully have to leave that area in order to not get a ticket. The license plate reader system has three options for how to enforce parking restrictions, and one of them is that we can create parking zones within the city, and you have to move your vehicle to a different zone. And I think that zones probably work for our downtown parking lots, our lots 1 through 4 on the waterfront. But I don't think it makes sense to establish zones in our residential neighborhoods because of the amount of signage we would have to put up to let people know what parking zone they are in. Um, The other two options, the system can be configured so that you have to move your vehicle to at least 1 block away, so either around a corner or across the nearest intersection, or you just have to move your vehicle to a different parking space and it can chalk your tire and see whether your wheel has rolled. And so you could just roll your car forward a few feet, which I think we maybe don't want. And so it seems to me that the best approach for how to change our chain parking code would be to use the zonal approach to our numbered parking lots, and then use the intersection approach to our residential areas where you basically would have to move your car just past the next cross street or around a corner onto a different street entirely, and that would allow you to avoid a violation. And looking for input from the land use committee as to whether that's acceptable.
Uh,
What,
could you explain chain parking a little bit to me? I'm sorry, it's the first time I've heard the term.
So in our code, we have chain parking restrictions, and I think they apply to Bay Street and Prospect Street only,
Okay.
and then maybe a portion of Sydney just from Prospect down to the ferry dock. And so if you park within that area within a 4 hour time restriction or a 2 hour time restriction, you have to leave that area essentially in order to not get a ticket. You can't just move to a different parking space. You actually have to get your car out of that area and get it at least 2 blocks away.
Okay.
So
Got it.
in 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 the other parts of the city where we have time restrictions, the we basically treat it as if we chalk your tire. If you drive and the chalk gets erased because you drove on it, or you move it to a different parking stall, you would not get a ticket for a chain parking violation. But anyway, since we won't be using chalk sticks anymore, we have to have a different way to document whether a car has moved or not and how far they have actually moved within those time restricted areas.
And what I
and
heard was the reader has difficulty doing that then?
Well, we just have to choose one of the three options. It can take a digital chalk mark of the tire where it photographs the
Oh,
position of the tire
I see what you're
and can
saying.
tell
Okay.
whether it has moved. But
Okay.
that means that somebody could roll their car forward 3 feet and then stay within that same 2 hour parking zone and park there for 4 or 6 hours, and move their car every 2 or 4 hours without getting a ticket. So I think the question is, are we going to make people go a full block, to the next block in
Mhm.
order to avoid the parking ticket, or do we want to actually create geographic zones? And in Seattle, they have zones all over the place. And so when you have a residential parking permit, it's approved for a certain zone. You can park only within that zone. But that's a huge amount of work, a huge amount of signage, and I don't think that's the approach that we want, with the exception of our four waterfront lots.
Got,
so go ahead, Jay.
no, go ahead. That was my point.
Okay. So outside of the downtown areas, are we getting a lot of complaints about parking, or are we seeing a lot of um, tickets that are in one particular area or zone per se? Um,
I mean, anywhere that has time restrictions, we're issuing tickets. We
mhm.
don't have, because all of our tickets are paper, we don't like map where these tickets are issued. That's one of the nice things about the LPR system, is we will actually have data, and we can show the hot spots where we're constantly writing tickets versus the other areas where people are generally following the rules. Uh,
Hmm.
but yeah, we don't have great data, but I think in areas around the courthouse, on Bay Street and Prospect Street downtown, there are parking tickets issued daily, and it just yeah, it's not one specific area.
So I have to be forthright in letting you know that I'm one of those parkers uh, on Klein Street, just past what's the lower street for the lower entrance of
DeKalb, or not DeKalb, but I forget the name of it.
yes, I
Dwight.
forgot the name of it too.
Dwight.
And so there's never really a parking issue. There's always parking spaces there during the day, that full block down the hill, and mostly across the street coming up the hill. But so I don't see the point in making somebody move 2 blocks like downtown business people might have to do. And I can certainly see maybe having somebody move across an intersection or such. But um, it's in that intersection I'm talking about, you've got 4 hour, and then you got immediately on the other side 2 hour. So that presents kind of a conundrum for people who want 4 hour parking. Um, and then there was another point I was going to make. Uh, I can't remember what it was, but essentially there's parking that's wide open, and so I can go for lunch and come back, and my space will still be there, and I can park there again. But I don't want this to be about me. I want this to be about an example of where maybe it might be a little over the top to make somebody move um, a block or two in certain areas. But maybe the license plate reader can inform on where these hotspots might be.
Yeah, I think it certainly will inform on where the hotspots are, but initially we would have to program it with one of those three options, and we can do a combination of two depending on where you are in the city. But um, I think the main question is, do you make somebody move around the corner? So that parking you're talking about is on Dwight, and you could move around the corner to Austin to avoid that limit. Um,
Hmm.
or do we simply say that if you move from one of those diagonal stalls into the very next stall, you avoid then getting a ticket?
Right,
And and
right.
that's yeah, so it's got to be one of those two unless we're going to create a complex system of zones. Um,
Do you feel the I'll call it the parking adjustment where you just move a couple feet or move one. So do you feel like that adjustment provision might work better for 2 hour parking spots versus 4 hour?
I don't. I think that I mean somebody's just setting a timer and remembering to go out and roll their car forward.
Right.
The idea of having the parking restrictions is to Well, I guess in part it's to prevent commuters from parking on streets and then not coming back and rolling their car forward. But
Yeah.
really, you're targeting commuters at the expense of other people who are essentially engaging in the same sort of behavior. If the goal is to keep turnover occurring, um, I
Yeah.
think you would have them move around the corner or to the next block.
Yeah. I will try and maintain my distance from this issue. I'll just point out what I see. And for the 4 hour slots that I park at quite frequently, there's no traffic that parks there during the day. Occasionally a couple vehicles, but that's from Dwight all the way down to bottom of the hill.
Hmm.
So, anyways, that's what I see, but I'm willing to go with what people want to do because again, it's really not about me. There will be enhanced parking facilities available for the um, courthouse soon, so it won't be as much of an issue for people. I do see the abuses with the 2 hour spots though, for sure.
So you had a recommendation, Nick, and I think part of the thing is we are limited in our the amount of folks that we have out doing parking enforcement, and so what you had proposed possibly zone downtown and then everything else be the chalk, if I heard that correct.
Well, I think it would be the waterfront lots, the lots 1 through 4 would be
Right.
each of those would be a zone. So if you're parked in lot 1, after 4 hours, you got to move at least to lot 2 or to an on-street parking space. But in on any of the streets in the city, you would just have to move to the next block or around the corner onto the adjacent side street.
Um, can I can I ask you, everybody, just pause for a moment? I have an alarm going off upstairs. I think it's probably because of the power outages, but it's super annoying. I'll be right back.
All right.
Yeah, because I'm trying to figure out is what makes the most sense for the city too. And I think it's always the downtown, the waterfront parking that's generates the most contention, and that's where I'm kind of like and at the same time, like you were talking about, you don't want to do something that's burdensome to the city either. So, where's the happy medium? And I kind of like the split between, and that would allow us to program the machine to do that then.
Correct. Yeah, it'll be totally automatic and it will just alert the parking enforcement officer when somebody has exceeded a time restriction based on those rules. But we just have to make sure that our code supports those rules, which right now our code has a different methodology entirely.
Right. I will have to go back to our code and read it. So thank you for bringing that up. I was just getting more clarification, Scott, when you were gone.
Sure.
On that. I tend to go with what Nick had been proposing earlier about 1 through 4, and then the street being different. I don't know if you caught that.
I did not catch that part.
I'll ask Nick to repeat it if you don't mind, and that
So
would be the
which
way I'd be more than willing to take it to, or have you draft the language, take it to the council.
Sorry, you want me to repeat which part of it?
The 1 through 4, zones 1 through 4 on the waterfront.
Well, yeah, so let me share my screen real quick.
Okay.
So we have the 4 waterfront parking lots. There's the one that's in front of the Marina lift station. Obviously, the new sewer lift station isn't shown here on Google Maps. Lot 2 behind
Right.
the block that Mansour owns. Um, Lot 3 is the smaller lot over behind the library here, and Lot 4 is where the farmers market sets up on Saturdays. And so in lots 1, 2, 3, and 4, we would create zones 1, 2, 3, and 4. And if you're in these lots, once you've exceeded the time limit, you would need to move to a different lot or to a street. You couldn't move to a different spot within that zone. Otherwise, if you're parked on any street in the city, you just have to move to the next block or around the corner. So if you're on Bay Street in front of the Port Orchard Market, you would need to move to past Sydney or back past Frederick or around the corner on Sydney, but you couldn't be anywhere within this street segment, or you would get dinged for having not moved off of that block within the 2 hour time restriction. And it's the same everywhere else in this.
Okay.
Yeah, the only thing I see with the zone was, since most of that parking is angled parking, you really can't roll it, 3 or 4 feet forward. So,
Yeah,
you know
that
what I'm
wouldn't be
saying?
an option there. Yeah, you would have to use a zone approach for those lots.
Oh, you would? Okay, regardless.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I think so. So
Scott, good.
the other thing, Jay, you had mentioned you'll take a look at our code. I was just going to point out that in 10.12.060, that's our current chain parking prohibition, and that the chain parking area really is focused on downtown. Um,
Right,
we really don't have great detail in the rest of the parking code about how far you have to move your car within one of those timed parking areas. And so
right.
because we're chalking tires, we're basically looking at the position of the chalk when we make it. And if the chalk is erased, it means somebody drove somewhere. And if the chalk is in the same position, they get a ticket. But obviously, when we don't use chalk, that goes away. So we
That's what I'm
don't
going to
really
say.
have
We're
any
not
code.
talking anymore.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, I mean, that'll be one of the changes. We don't chalk anymore. So
Yep.
I'm good with 1 through 4 zone, and then, residential just moving close by.
Right. Sounds good.
Okay.
Scott,
I'm happy
can
with
you live
that.
with that? Okay.
Yep.
All right. C, permittable AI.
I just wanted to report that we're continuing to test and work through trying to launch permittable AI for our applicants. We've done the first review and we went ahead and are having them calibrate their system before we run the next couple sets of plans through their system. It's going a little bit slower than I had hoped, mostly because inspection activity has picked up and I'm having my building staff compare the report that's generated by Permittable to the actual plan review. And so they've had for about the last 3 or 4 days They've been reviewing a comment matrix and trying to figure out how to train their system to uh, make the same sorts of comments that our staff, our humans are making. And I'm expecting something back from them soon. But I think we're going to be into the beginning of May at the earliest before this launches.
What does that process look like? That step look like to train AI to accommodate our reviews? Is that
So
chunky or what does that look like?
Well, I mean, the first thing that we're doing is we're just loading. So we picked an assortment of plans, and we picked plans that came in right at the beginning of the code change cycle because once the new 2021 codes came out, we figured there were a lot of things that designers and builders were missing, and so we wanted to start with those older plan sets and run them through. So we take the plan set, we take the entire submittal, the application forms, the plan set, the structural engineering, the energy code worksheet, and we upload all of those documents into the system. And 12 hours later, it sends us a report and says, this is what we found from analyzing this submittal. And then what I've had my staff do is they are reading that report and highlighting things that it's getting correct in green, highlighting things that are kind of right in yellow, and highlighting just things that are missed in red. And then we're sending that together with the first red line copy of the plans that we sent back to the applicant, along with the comment matrix that we prepare to and send to the applicant, so that Permittable actually says, okay, here are our actual comments and our actual markups, and now they're working uh, on the back end, teaching the machine how to catch those things. So I think this first time through is probably a little bit slower, hopefully, than the next time through. My plan after this is I'm going to do 3 reviews at the same time and generate 3 reports and then send all the data to them at the same time. But we really wanted to pick one of our plans and say, okay, let's test it with this one and see how close to the mark we are, and hopefully it keeps getting closer and closer as we do these reviews.
Okay. So you're just tightening as you move it along.
Correct.
And this was the what we got from or that was brought to us by McCormick, correct?
Correct. Yeah, the pilot program that council approved
Right.
in March, I think.
Have we got any feedback from folks yet?
Not yet because it's not available. We haven't made it
Oh,
available
I'm
yet because
sorry.
we're still testing.
Okay, I thought we were doing it beta with some folks. Okay, thank you
Yeah.
for clarifying that. I appreciate that. Quarterly inspection report.
So there was an inspection report in your packet. I think
Yep.
Councilmember Diener, you mentioned this last night at the council meeting, just that we had over 5,000 inspections in 2025, which is a pretty huge number.
Well,
And
nearly 6,000, not just
yeah,
over, but 5,900 almost.
yeah. So in any event, we just wanted to give you a end of year 2025 numbers and show you where we are year to date in 2026. We are definitely slower in 2026, but I think since mid-March, we've really seen things pick up, and there is a seasonal aspect to construction and inspection activity. And also, just for instance, D.R. Horton, they had Stetson Ridge, they had a bunch of permits that were being held, waiting for them to complete some of the work that they had bonded, and so they're just getting going, and they are starting, I think, their first 10 homes out there. And so I think things are ramping up more so than they were in January and February.
No
Thank you.
comments. We continue to grow. Cormac Woods North Development Agreement.
All right. So we added this item. It was a late addition to the packet, and that's because um, in the mayor's just agenda coordination meeting today, we were trying to figure out when we would schedule this hearing, and we realized that none of the committees had seen it yet, and we were hoping for maybe the first meeting in May to bring this forward. So the McCormick North Development Agreement, when we created the McCormick Village Master Plan, we worked with McCormick to write the plan and the development regulations, and they reviewed those development regulations. And it wasn't until they actually started going through permitting that they realized that they had a number of challenges meeting some of the standards that they had initially said were okay. So they're asking for relief from just a few of the development standards that are in the current McCormick Village Overlay District. And when you do development agreements, there has to be something of value that comes to the city. And one of the other things that they have proposed, um, we have to, as part of our foster pilot program, to get additional water rights, and also just to be able to use our current water rights on well 11 to the maximum allowed by the permit that we have to do an augmentation project at Parish Creek, which is just west of the 660 reservoir and that new water campus where our new water towers are located. So McCormick is agreeing to take on the design of that, and so as part of this agreement, they're committing to to beginning that design even in advance of renegotiating their current water agreement with the city. And in exchange for that, we're giving them some relief that's going to make their next phase of developing the village a little bit more streamlined and uh, address some of the challenges that they've had on phase one, based on those overlay district standards that we wrote. So if you look at section 17 of, or I'm sorry, 14 of the agreement, I'm going to share my screen here. So the design flexibility section, they're basically asking for relief from the impervious um, surfaces, and the Jim, I believe that this has to do with the surface parking stalls that they want to be able to install in between the two garages. Is that right?
Correct.
And so we had a limit on lot coverage in the code that after the fact, because they wanted to put this surface parking in addition to their garages, they don't actually have room for within the zoning without shrinking the size of these houses even further. So that's one item of relief. The They wanted some additional facade variation relief. We had required a minimum number of alternative design elements to meet architectural variety standards, and so they're proposing to reduce this to just one variation rather than, I believe it's currently two. Is that right, Jim?
That's right.
Okay. And then they have a couple of lots, and I might be able to show you where, but there's a lot where the garage is entering. Uh, the lot isn't on an alley in the sense that there's a rear alley. It's on the side of the house, and it's kind of a lot that is tucked in a way that they aren't allowed to have a detached garage except loaded from an alley. And in this one lot, and I think they might have two more future lots in a future phase where they need to have a side entry alley garage, which wouldn't be allowed by our code, but this just allows them to have both the house and the ADU, similar to how they've done all their other lots. It's just that these lots don't have a rear entry accessory dwelling unit or carriage house. They've also got in the commercial area, they've had some challenges. When we wrote the design standards, we were treating these buildings as storefronts, like what we have downtown on Bay Street. And the architectural style that they're going for, actually, it's really hard for them to achieve the transparency that we had set as the target in the initial development regulations. And so they're asking for us to reduce that to be, I think it's from 60% transparency down to 30% on the commercial storefronts and 20% for the other areas. So, so basically, it's just reducing the amount of windows that have to be provided in that village area. So those are the no, the items in terms of our design standards that they're seeking relief from, and they're going to agree to build the Parish Creek Augmentation Station as consideration to the city.
I don't think, go ahead, Scott. You're muted.
Okay, so Nick, have we already looked at this? This all seems very familiar. I feel like we talked about this some time ago.
We
Um,
may have. I just don't think we actually had the draft of the agreement yet. I think we had a request.
I feel like I remember looking at this specific language
Yeah.
some time ago. So, and I feel like we were okay with it back then, I guess is where I'm headed.
Okay, then that's great. I couldn't remember this morning whether we had taken this to a committee yet, and I just didn't want it to show up for a public hearing on the 10th of May without at least a few of you having seen it.
Yeah, I'll just to be fair, that was a different committee, and so we a different committee today. So
It was in
Shira,
November.
Uh, two out
okay.
of three are the same. Shira, you're muted right now. If you'd like to go ahead,
Thank
and
you. You
you can go
mentioned
ahead, Shira.
there being a design. Is it possible to see that picture just so I can understand the difference of what we're requiring and what they want to put in?
Yeah, let me see if I can find that real quick. And Jim, if you're faster than me, feel
Uh,
free to share your screen.
I will look.
And
So
I feel like
I'm gonna
we,
go to the overlay district and pull
yeah.
up the design chapter. I'm not sure if there's any images in that chapter or not.
And also, can you just one more time explain, like succinct, like, like maybe if you can do it in one sentence, what the augmentation station is again?
So, Parish Creek has low flow, which is harmful to salmon. And so when you're pulling additional water out of the ground for domestic use, you're lowering the water table, which lowers in-stream flow. And so during certain times of the year, they want us to be able to pump water from our well directly to the creek to make sure that the salmon are able to make it upstream for spawning. And so, as a condition of our permit that allows us to use well 11, we had to install this augmentation station so that during certain times of the year, we can actually pump water into the creek to make sure that there's enough water for fish.
And they're
I feel
saying
like
they'll build it because before they didn't have to build it.
They're going to design it for us, and then they're separately going to be proposing an amendment to their water agreement where they'll also build it for us. But there has to be a credit against the fees that they pay with each new house that they build. So they'll get paid back over time, but they're going to build it for the city and then receive credit back to cover their cost. Every house you build in the city, you pay like a $13,000 connection charge. But if you build some of the city's infrastructure, you're able to reduce the amount that you owe on that connection charge by the amount that you invested in the city's system by making those improvements. So, and the water in McCormick, we're getting stretched pretty thin at this point, and so we need to be able to increase the pumping capacity of that well. And it would take the city several more years to do this project than it takes them to do it. So they're just going to get it done for us and then get paid back in the form of reducing the amount that each builder pays on a new house to connect to water.
Because otherwise, would they even be able to build if we didn't have a way of pumping back into the stream?
Sooner or later, we would run out of water.
We've
Right.
had
Are they
had
allowed to
a,
build even if we run out of water?
no, we had a building moratorium several years ago, not because of running out of water, but because we had some, for lack of better words, changes in the amount of water that we had to have in our for fire fighting, and we had a moratorium on that. Part of this is also going to be relieved if we are able to reach I hate to use the word deal, but a conclusion with the Foster pilot program. And we're waiting to hear some information from Dennis on that, probably at our next meeting. So the answer is we're not there yet. And if we need to consider that, then we'll consider it as a council.
Okay.
And I'll share that the McCormick Water Agreement, if you'd like me to send you a copy, I'm sure I'm happy to do that. Um, We agreed, so we had an agreement going back to 1998 where the city promised to provide water to McCormick, and they were going to build certain infrastructure for the city. In 2019, or maybe it was 2022, we renegotiated that agreement. And in that renegotiation, we agreed to support 2,000 homes, but McCormick has to build five capital projects for us. And they've built the first two of those, and there's two more that are due this year that they're working on. And then the last one is well 12, which is dependent on Foster. And so our ability to provide them the water that we've promised is contingent on them building something that Foster is needed to achieve. But they're going to be bringing forward a proposed amendment to that agreement because some of our understanding of what is needed to be built has changed. We're also talking about adding a couple of projects to that list because we've learned of some other um, challenges that we have. There's a water main on Old Clifton Road that McCormick is potentially going to build for us, and there is the Stetson Heights intertie. There's a water system intertie that goes from like the Sydney Sedgwick area, or I'm sorry, the Sydney Road and Sedgwick Road near the Safeway. It goes through Stetson Heights and is supposed to connect into the backside of McCormick Woods. We thought we were going to need an additional pump station there, and we've recently learned that we may not need a pump station, but there's kind of an alternative improvement that's needed, and so we need to negotiate the parameters of what that would look like. So we're actively engaged with McCormick right now, and you may see something come forward in June on that topic.
Sorry. Thank you for explaining.
Yeah. And Jim, you shared the images of what this is one of their current buildings that they have, right?
Yeah, this is in that commercial area, right on the corner of Yarrow and McCormick Village Drive. So that's the one that they would be seeking relief for the transparency on.
Yeah, and just so I'm going to share my screen. There's also this other 3D walkthrough tool that's on our website. So this was the original concept for this commercial village area. And so these windows here are probably closer to 60% of the building. And I think what they're finding is number one, the types of tenants that they have, they need more wall space. You've got to put kitchen equipment or other things against walls, and you can't necessarily have this level of windows. And also, these are four-sided buildings, so some of the facades, you have to have sort of a back of the building. And then, on one side of the building, it may be possible to have a high level of windows, but not on all four sides. So this is generally what the original concept was. And I think what Jim shared, which I'll stop what I'm sharing. Was that the first building that they're building, Jim? Was that
I
building A?
believe so, yes.
Yeah, so building A generally looks like what was shown in the renderings that we have on our website.
Yeah, I was just wondering, I think you answered the question. I mean, not specifically, but I was wondering if these were the request for relief was based on what type of business was going in there.
Yeah, I think it is to a large extent because when this was what the initial concept, they were really hoping that they'd get retail and restaurants, which they are getting some of that, but we've also got a veterinary office going in, and a vet office has very different needs for like storefront type windows than a restaurant or a retail store.
Right. No, I remember hearing some of this language before. I don't know if we've seen it in print, so I don't think I have anything that's earth-shattering. I assume that the ADU with the garage was basically a way to increase the density and get the building in that space, which is fine for that area.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I can actually show you that lot real
I think it was
quick.
more to keep the density that was proposed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and really it's here, let me share my screen. So this is the first lot where this is coming up. Ashwood is a street, but there's no alley on the backside. So they want to put the
Right.
house on the front of this and then a garage here that comes off of Ashwood. But the code basically says that the ADU has to load from an alley, and this one lot
Right.
that they've squeezed in here just doesn't have an alley. So that may occur when they develop the McCormick Village Central phase over here. I think there's one or two lots that have there's similar room to squeeze in a lot. There isn't an alley there for those particular lots.
What's that narrow track below?
This one,
Yeah.
good question. They have quite a few of those little tracks throughout here, and I think some of them they're on-site open space. I know one of them is like a garbage receptacle area. It
Hmm.
just depends which one you're talking about.
Okay.
And I don't think we don't have aerial photos. Yeah, this is still, you can't really see what's going on there yet. Hopefully the county gets some new aerial photos for us soon.
Mhm.
Well, I don't have any issue moving forward with the agreement. I'm not hearing anything that's, we wouldn't look at do for anybody else in similar circumstances. Looking at these small nits, and I think we're, moving forward be really be a good thing on this item. Scott, Shura?
I was just kind of curious about that little area because if it was like big enough to create an alley and they needed an alley, I just don't know why they wouldn't make it an alley.
Well,
Or,
it would be a dead end because it's terminating in a wetland, so it doesn't go through.
Mhm.
But you also you'd have to I don't have the layout handy for phase two, but phase two butts up against that, and so it's possible that this has something to do with what's planned in phase two.
Plus, it would only serve one house.
Yeah, that's true.
I've been over there. I swear I've seen that before, where you have like a little thing and it only serves like one house, like a little inlet.
Well, that was all we had on the agenda. Does anybody have anything else?
I propose that maybe since we start at 4:45, maybe would it be possible to start at 5?
That's getting a little late for me,
Okay.
unless we have to switch the day on
Okay.
that.
Yeah.
I will ask the other members of the team.
Okay. Well, I mean, I will try. I think for me that just the 4:45, it's not like, I mean, I have the time, I guess. It's just 4:45 tends to be really difficult because I think by 4:20 I'm staring at it, expecting it to be 4:30, and then I'm like, oh, that's right, it's 4:45. And then next thing I know it's like 5:10. So that's why I was like, ugh,
Well,
even numbers. But no, if it's hard, that's fine.
okay,
I'll
all right,
figure it out.
all righty. If nothing else for the good of the order, thank you all very much. And council members, see you Friday,
See
9
you
a.m.
Friday.
All right, have a good evening.
Bye,
Take
everybody.
care.